Quarry with a quick bullet journal hack for you. Now, this is one of the journals that I use for my bullet journaling, and it's a system called Arc, and I purchased this from Staples. One of the reasons I enjoy using the system is its versatility. I really love that I can use my own papers in here. I love that I can move my papers around, and I love that I can fairly easily add and remove things from it. I also love that it lays completely flat, and I can, sort of flip it over entirely. These are just like round discs, so they are free floating in here. It's just really simple to use. The other reason I love this is because I purchased this hole punch that comes with it. It's part of the Arc system, and it allows me to print or draw or paint or make my own papers, and then I can just punch them and they slide in and out of my journal as easily as these standard papers do. So that's what the whole pattern looks like, and that's how easy it is to take them out, move them around, and put them back in there. So the hack that I'm going to show you is adding a ruler to my journal. And I could always make a little pocket and stick it in the pocket, but I really like the idea of having this the ability to sort of snap it in and snap it out, and even to use this ruler as sort of a bookmark, allowing me to snap it in at different points in my book. So if, let's say this is my current daily journal and I want to put this here, I could just snap it in there and be ready for the next day. Also, I found this little triangle, and I love that it fits perfectly in my book, and I love using the combination of the straight edge and the triangle from my engineering days, and I hope to show you a few tips and tricks on that in the future. But using them in combination is a great way to get parallel lines in any direction. So I like having both those in my journal and handy at all times. So the idea that I came up with is a way to snap this into my journal just like the pages get snapped in, and make it removable so that I can more easily have access to these than having to locate them every time I need to do something. This is what I'm going to be using for this hack. And this is just, it's trash. It was a toothbrush cover set that we purchased at the grocery store. And as with everything, before my husband's allowed to throw anything out, I have to examine it and decide whether or not it's something I can use in one of my projects. And so I loved, one thing I noticed about this is it has a really nice flexible plastic material. It's almost like the same material as my cover. It's just a little bit thinner, which for this purpose I think is even a better thing, to have something that's a little bit thinner. And the reason for that is because I want this to be flexible. I want it to go in and out of the rings pretty easily, and I'm pretty sure that this material will do what I'm looking for. Now I'm just going to cut this out. I'm not going to do anything with these little tabs here, so let me just remove them. And I am left with just the wrapper, or the plastic support. Just want to take this off. Remove this tape and get this as clean as possible. And it's not, I mean, this isn't perfectly ideal in the fact that it's not perfectly ideal because it's got all these little holes and cuts in it, but I think I can work around that. I like the idea of being able to work with something that was headed for the trash and make use of it. So what I'm looking for is actually two separate pieces. I want one that's going to attach to my triangle, and I want another that's going to attach to my ruler. And so because I have this long slot in here, I'm just going to cut along that line and create two pieces for myself. Okay, and I'm looking for like a solid straight edge. So I've got one right here. That will be my long edge. This, I could use this, but it's got those holes in it. And I think this is big enough. I really need to just catch three holes with this, so that's plenty long enough. The only thing I like about this end is that there's no words on it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can't cut a nice straight cut down this end. Okay, so I'm going to take my Sharpie pen, draw a straight-ish line. Hopefully that's writing on here. I'm not sure. Yep, I did. Great. I could cut this in my paper cutter, but I'm just going to use my scissors. I'm going to cut a straight line. Okay, and that's going to be a great interface for my ruler. My triangle is going to be a little bit, it's going to have to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to end up with these little holes in it. I don't mind that. I just want to cut off these words and make a straight edge on this side. So let me get that lined up and cut. Again, I'm just going to mark this because the material is so slippery that it's really hard to keep it in place while I'm cutting it. So, straight line, and then again I want just two. I'm just going to cut this as close to the edge as possible, and then I'm going to figure out where I want to trim it. But and let's see. Okay, I'm going to hold on to that just for a minute. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to decide which one I want to use where. I definitely think I'm going to be hole punching along this edge. I need a big enough clean area to punch, so that makes sense to me to put that on that edge, even if it's visually not as appealing. And this one, I want to at least catch 3. That's not long enough. That is long enough right there to catch 3, and it runs over to my ruler, so that one's perfect right there. So I am going to, and I need this to be straight. Probably don't need it to be straight, but I would like it to be straight. Let's see, could that work like that? Yeah, I'm just going to straighten that off. So let me just go straight down the edge of this. Okay, so it's almost the size of a credit card right now. And I think that will work. Okay, so I'm going to have one going this way, and I'll probably cut off those letters. Just try to catch 2 of those. Trying to use this mat as a guideline here. Get my lines nice and straight. And make sure that still fits. It's a little close. I'm going to cut a little bit on the outside of this line. Just to give myself a little bit of extra room, and I will wait to do the rest until I have my holes punched. Okay, so here's how this is going to look. These are going to be laying in my book like so, and I have them positioned so that they're flat, so that they're, you know, one is not stacked on top of the other, that they can lay side by side. I'm going to have this one attaching to my edge right here and taped onto my triangle, and I'm going to have this one trying to pick up the center holes on this one. So these 2 are the center, but I can't quite get all 4 of these. It's just these are right on the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'll just favor the top 3. So I'm going to hit these 2 with this, and I'm going to hit these 3 with this, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is mark this approximately where I see the holes lining up, and then the same with this one. So this is about there. This can go up a little bit. Maybe like that. So that would work for me, and then I would have to cut off the bottom on this one, but that's fine. So I have my hole locations marked. Let me set this aside just for a minute, and I will get my hole punch out. Okay, so I'll start with the 2 hole one. I'm not using my guide really. I'm just going to slide these in, and if you can see, I'm trying to center this piece of plastic between my holes, and I'm trying to get this nice and square if at all possible. Once I have that pretty much centered between 2 holes, I can just go ahead and punch it, and that's what those holes are going to look like. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for this. Now this one has my 3 holes in it, and it doesn't really matter which holes I line up. This is going to end up getting punched a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to cut that off. So again, trying to get my holes centered in there, press it all the way in, making sure I have a little bit of overlap. It's not actually centered. It's centered on where my holes were, but it's not quite centered on the card. So I'm going to have to cut a little bit of the bottom off. That's about it. So let me trim the bottom, and then I'll put it on there, and I will show you what this looks like. So I still have to trim this end, but let me just sort of snap this on. So this is how my ruler and my triangle are going to snap on and off. This is the attachment point. And you can see how easily this slides around. My ruler, I want to make sure that it's fairly close to the binding, but not like binding with the binding, not really touching it. And I want to make sure it's centered on my cover, top to bottom. And so that's about right. And what I'm going to do is just visually mark the center. So I'm lining it up with that hole right there. That's about my center. I want to cut it there because that's really my pivot point that I want. So I'm going to try, I'll see if I can score it. I don't think I can. I think I'm going to have to just cut it and just use a piece of tape there, but let's just see what happens. So that would work there. And then this, I want to slide all the way up against my ruler, if I can. So it nestles in there, and I want this sort of centered on that interface right there, which happens to line nicely up with this little hole right there. So that's great. I'm just going to cut that right there. It'll be perfect. Exactly what I was hoping for. So I got lucky with that. Okay, so let's see if I can score this. I don't think I can. I think I'm going to have the same problem with the sliding around, and if that's the case, I'm just going to cut it. But let's just see if I can take my knife very gently and get a score line on there. The reason I'm trying to do this, so I did, but let's see if this snaps when I bend it. Oh. I'm trying to get a nice clean edge and maybe still keep a little piece of it on there. I don't think that's going to stay. I think that's going to want to break off on me. But you never know. So let me give this a shot. I'm just going to cut a straight line just underneath it. I'm just keeping like a little bit of a lip there. Just to make this a little bit more secure. Okay, so this is going to end up getting glued onto here with my edge corner lined up with the center of my ruler, and making sure that this is lined up properly with the holes. So I'll snap this back in there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. Well, let me go ahead and attach this. So I'm just using regular clear tape. If you want this to be more secure, you can work with packaging tape, which I think is a little bit heavier, or even something as heavy as a duct tape. For me, I'm sticking with this because it's clear and it's easy to work with for this demo. If this ends up tearing on me in the future, I can always go ahead and use another material, another tape with it. So I'm going to keep this under just temporarily right now. What I'm doing, and I know it's hard to see, is I'm trying to line up my tape with the edge of that little fold line that I created. And I'm just going to trim off my extra. Now that it wasn't necessary to line that up. That would have been just fine if I had gone up and over, because this tape will bend. But now I'm going to line this up, top and bottom, try to make it nice and square, and fold this down and tape. Okay, so that's the idea. It's not a big issue if you overlap, but I did, and I'm just going to trim it off, just trimming my tape off. I'm trying not to trim off my ruler itself. Okay, so you can trim that off. Now another way would have been just to make the tape, to raise the tape a little higher up on my interface. So then I'm going to now tape the other side of this. Same thing. This time I'm going to try to get the length close enough. Folding this over, going about halfway across here. Oops, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, let's try that again. Try this a second time. So since there is a fold here, I want this fold to be the thing that stays down. Okay, so let me try that again. I'm folding it on the fold, pressing it down, and that is lined up with my center. Putting the tape about halfway up and then pressing it down so that I create sort of this little tab on here that sticks straight up. The nice thing about this tab is I can use it to move my ruler around on my page. So it sort of serves this separate purpose. I'm just trimming off any excess. I'm pressing it down very firmly, and then when I lay it flat, it can adhere. Now I'm going to put another piece of tape on this. This is not absolutely necessary, that little score and fold line. I did that to make this a little bit more secure, but honestly I don't think it was necessary. I think I probably could have just cut it right there and done the tape the exact same way. And I think I'll try that with this one, so you can see the two options. But that's all I really need. So if you have a nice secure tape here, you can now go ahead and snap this down into your book, and there it goes. So you can put it on the outside, you can put it inside the front, you can use it as a bookmark. It's going to provide you sort of a lot of different options. Okay, so now I'm going to take my other piece that I hole punched. Again, I'm going to pop it into place so I know where it's going to sit, and I just have to decide where I want it on my triangle. And I think I'm going to almost line my triangle with the top, not completely up with the top edge because I don't want it to come out. I'm trying to line it up with the top edge of the paper. And again, I marked, let me pull this out just a little bit. I marked my line on there and it's still lining up nicely, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut, I'm going to tape, and I'm going to pop it back in. So it's always a good idea to measure twice because you can usually only cut once. All right, let me line this up with my grid, try to get this nice and square. There we go. So there is my, I'm going to just cut these little corners off just a little bit. There's my tab, and really the important thing is the up to down measurement. This time I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to do it a little bit bigger than I need, and I'm going to just line it up with the edge. I'm going to go about halfway. So half on, half off. And then I'm going to trim my excess. I'm going to fold the tape up so it's kind of flat with my flat against my edge, and it's a little tricky because I'm trying to line this up with two different things. So I'm trying to line it up with the ruler, so I'm going to pull that out. Trying to line it up with the triangle. There you go. So see how it lies nicely? Whoops. And there is a little bit of play in here, and that bothers me. So I will move it around until I get it kind of square. I don't like when things are crooked. Okay. So there it goes. It's nice and secure. If I pull it off, I want to be able to sort of fold this back and add another piece of tape on that side. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my tape about halfway up, run it along that edge, and there you go. So now I have a little bit of a handle for this. I have a way to hook it into my book. It hooks on top of my ruler, so these two are lying very, very flat in my book, and they're very secure. So now I can go ahead, and if I'm wanting to use this, I can pop it out. I can use any of those edges. I can pop this out. I can use my centimeter side, as long as I don't mind that I cut off the beginning part of the scale. I can still measure by the centimeter if I want, or in my case I'm going to be using the inch scale. And if I want to create parallel lines, I will use a combination of these two things. So I can use this edge, and I can run up and down, and I can create some diagonal parallel lines. And you know, that's just sort of like a little trick that I learned when I had a drafting class, and it's really helpful for doing all kinds of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel and check back often.